Doug, thank you so much for being with us today. It's so good to have you. Thank you so much for your time.
I love being in Poland.
Good to have you in Poland. um, I'm so excited because today we're going to talk about mistaken identity, self-image, and why self-image is so important in our life. Why is it important really to understand what is it, how we have developed this bad self-image, or you call it mistaken identity, and how can we change it? How can we work with it so then we can change our results and change our lives? So I'm so excited because this is my favorite topic. And I love psychocybernetics. Maxwell Maltz, he talks about the mistaken identity and self-image. So let's just start with definition of mistaken identity. What is it?
Yeah, I came up with the words because I was talking to a lot of people. And one of the questions I always ask, I try to uncover kind of what people think of themselves, how they feel about themselves, how they evaluate themselves relative to what, they're trying to accomplish. And so we all have an identity. We all experience identity crises throughout our lives. And so your identity that really forms your personality is basically, really it's a system, a set of ideas that you believe to be true about you. And so most people I've met have a mistaken identity, primarily because of just the way that they were brought up and how they were treated when they were young and what the parents and the adults told them about them. And of course, the parents and the adults, their view of the child is through their own lens or their own view of the world through their own view of them. And so, the adults make a lot of mistakes with us, and we end up with a set of ideas that are mistaken. We have a mistaken view about yourself, and how you can tell, you just got to ask somebody, how do you feel about yourself? Do you like yourself? And do you feel good can you be yourself? Do you like yourself? And do you enjoy being by yourself? Because really, if you just be yourself, that should be really easy. But that's a big challenge for people.
So how do I know that I have a mistaken identity? How do I know? What are the symptoms we can observe so we can really see in our lives? Is it the results, the way how we feel? What is it? The thoughts that we have about ourselves, our habits, the behavior? What is it? How do I know that I have a mistaken identity?
Well, everything you listed, I like to actually work backwards. So the thing that occupies our minds the most primarily is not how we feel about ourselves and the inner critic and all that dialogue, although that causes problems. We always look at our circumference, our external world, and we look at, our relationships. We look at the mirror at our bodies. We look at, our bank accounts. We look at other people that are in our lives. Even, we look at strangers. I mean, so first thing you do is go to your results. Just take a look at what's going on in your life. And there's different areas. I mean, primarily there's a guy, he called them the 5 F's. So your finances, your friendships, your family, your faith, and I'm missing a fifth. Anyway, you get the drift, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so look at those areas of your life. And then if you're struggling in any of those areas, all your behaviors and actions that create the results, all your behaviors come from belief. So if you're struggling in your life, let's take a look at the set of ideas that I have, the beliefs I have, and then go inside and then listen to what your inner critic is saying. So when we're working with people, we get them to kind of see that their mistaken identity is kind of I call it your inner cellmate. A lot of people stuck in prison, emotional prison. So see your mistaken identity as a separate thing. Now your ego's not a thing, but for the purpose of, evaluating the challenge you're facing, is pretend that you've got this inner cellmate, and what does he or she say to you about your results? Look at your results, and he's probably really judgmental, and she's really critical, and he probably says you'll never be able to do it. Why bother? And so our inner critic is really the saboteur of our results, and we're so used to listening to this false self, this ego side of us, this mistaken identity that we literally inherited and adopted. And so that's kind of how you do it. And so, yeah, look at your results. Take a look at your physical and nervous state. Like, what's the state of this physical body? Are you anxious? Are you scared? Are you, living in fear, depression? So if you're experiencing negative emotions, that's a clue too. And so it starts from the inside. That's what causes all your problems outside, but we're all outside focused. So just kind of work backwards. So it's everything you listed and just the way I described it.
I love it. So, when did you discover in your life that you have built this mistaken identity? You have it, and your mistaken identity is controlling you, your results, and your emotional state. How did you discover that?
I wish I'd discovered it sooner.
Mhm.
It was a combination of things. So I got introduced to the idea that about self-image. You mentioned Psychocybernetyce,
Yeah.
wonderful book. It was a revolution in psychology back in the early 60s. Nobody was talking about self-image. And so I was introduced to this idea that my self-image is kind of controlling my creativity. It impacts my emotions, my physical state, all these different things. So reading that book opened up this idea. And I'd read that book for probably 6 years and several times a year. And I missed something that was so critical. And it was at the very back of the second chapter. And he said, you can't just make up a self-image arbitrarily. If you want to create an accurate, healthy self-image of you, then that image that you create has to be based on the truth, the facts. And I was always taught I can be, do, have anything I want.
Yeah.
And that wasn't working for me. And I was very frustrated because I thought everybody else was doing well, and I found out they're not. And so that was the first part. Because the other thing he said is that you can't just make up a new self-image unless you see the old self-image is in error, he said, right? And so then the words mistaken, because I'd be talking to people, I go, I think you're mistaken about, I see you completely differently, right? And so that's kind of how the initial part of it. Then another great book that influenced me was The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And he gets you to see your ego side of you, the inner critic side of you, how that's really controlling so many things. So he gets you to start listening to what your inner critic is saying, right? And also, and so the book Untie Your Soul from this ego manufactured mistaken side of you. So when I was able to do that, he tells you in the book, he goes, sit back in the seat of your soul and observe what your ego says and does. So I became an observer. And so then I'm watching what I was doing and what I was thinking and what I was saying. And as a an adult, mature, intelligent man, I'm going, I can't believe I'm thinking that. And so then I was able to connect why I thought that to what I call the origin, my upbringing, and all those experiences, and the ideas that got formed that I felt this is who I am. And of course, I made a lot of mistakes because of who I thought I was and wasn't, right? So I was able to connect that to this observer role that I took on. And that's one of the things we try to get you to do is become what I call an objective observer. We can do that with other people. We have to do it with ourselves.
I love it. So why did you have this need or urge to look for your habitual thoughts, observe your emotion. What was the reason why you just couldn't enjoy life, be happy, enjoy the success that you have achieved, even financial success, status, and you were super successful in business? Why you just couldn't sit back and enjoy the life? Why you were just so involved in this in the book and in psychocybernetics, and why you were looking for the help and the solutions? Why did you do that?
Well, first off, I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I thought material success would bring me happiness.
Yeah.
I saw other people enjoying material success and they looked happy.
Mm.
But like most of us, we were pretending to be, something or someone we're not. But the primary motivator, obviously selfishly, I had this internal struggle going on. And it impacted my physical state, my nervous state, my emotional state. Of course, I made a lot of mistakes, and I'm very kind-hearted and very ethical, but my actions weren't lining up with the sense of who I thought I was and who I now am. I always was, but my behavior was different. So I was pursuing this ultimate goal in life, which is called peace of mind. That's really what everybody wants, is peace of mind.
Yeah.
So I was pursuing it because I didn't have it. No matter what I did or who I spent time with or the relationships I had, my business, I just could not find that feeling, And of course, I got drawn into the narratives and the dialogue about, finding your calling and finding your purpose. And so
Yeah,
I was looking all over the place for it. And you'll never find your calling and you'll never find your purpose if you're pretending to be somebody you're not.
exactly.
And so what I realized was, if I got to stop seeking and suffering and straining and struggling. So that's what I was trying to achieve. But also, just as important, is I've been working with people, helping people, my entire life, certainly in my business career, for sure. I was always the guy that, went out and figured out how to be successful at something. And then I liked showing others. I like to guide other people on how to duplicate what I did. And I wasn't able to duplicate, I wasn't able to show the people how to duplicate what I did and how I did it. So that was the bigger part of the pursuit. And of course, when I started to realize that 60-70% of the population in pretty much every country in the world has been through really difficult experiences as a kid in some way, shape, or form. And it's formed this false identity of themselves, and they struggle and they suffer and strain like I was. So that was the secondary dominant motivator, was I got to figure this out, not just for me, but for others. And I didn't think it was right for me to tell you how you should do something unless I'd figured it out first.
Gotcha.
So that was really important to me.
Because your childhood was difficult. Your
Difficult.
past was dark, and you have discovered the truth about your past many years ago. Well, maybe not that many, like you said. Well, you'll be probably in different place in life where you could discover the truth about your past sooner. But it is what it is. It happened in the perfect moment. But can you just explain what happened to you, what you have discovered?
Yeah. What I discovered or what happened to me? Sorry.
What you have discovered, what happened to you in your
I
past,
see.
your
Yeah,
childhood.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was I was 39 years old, and I had wrecked another relationship, wrecked my marriage, and I was bright enough to, say I better figure out what I'm doing wrong here because I keep making the same mistake. And so through counseling, this wonderful mentor, she asked me a couple questions about my background I couldn't answer, and she suggested that I think you experienced child abuse, and I go, no, I don't think so. Anyway, she was right. I had, and it was all blocked out. So I did an investigation, literally hired a private investigator. I did my own investigating. And I went back to my early childhood, to my neighborhood, to family, to friends, neighbors, teachers, police officers that were in and out of my life, social workers that were in and out of my life. And I put together this whole story, and I went public with it when I was almost 40. And it was called, I wrote Dark Past, Bright Future. And I was able to connect the dots for all of my emotional suffering that was causing me external problems. And so when I had the whole story all together, I go, well, geez, no wonder I've been struggling. No wonder I feel so lousy about myself. No wonder I'm dealing with anxiety and depression and all kinds of emotional, mental health challenges, physical health challenges. It was like, I just gathered the facts.
Yeah.
And it explained pretty much everything. And so then I was also able to let it go and forgive myself. It wasn't my fault. All these mistakes I made was because of the mistakes that were made when I was little. If those mistakes weren't made, I likely wouldn't have made the mistakes that I had made.
Wow.
And so that was I was able to connect those two dots. And it made it very easy to let go. And that's what I try to do with people we work with, is get them to take a look at the facts, not dredge up the past, but just gather the data, the information, like an investigator would, and put the story together. And I'll bet you any money there's something in your story, or several things in your story. Could be one thing in your story, but there'll be a theme in your story in terms of how you were treated and what you experienced and what you witnessed that formed this system of ideas in your mind and your heart about you that is off track. And so that's kind of what happened.
Wow. Because this is exactly what we try to do. Like, this is what I have tried in my past. And I have heard there's so many things from the people, from our clients, from our students in our academy. We try to deal with the past. Every time when we read those wonderful books, Psychocybernetics, even your book, whatever, we think about the self-image. Well, first, we do not really understand what a self-image is. We do not understand how our mind works. We do not understand this properly. And then we try to figure out, and we sometimes come to the conclusion that, oh, I have to deal with the past. This is what the self-image work really means. I have to deal with the past, right?
Yeah,
Why
right.
dealing with the past is not the solution. And this is not the really proper way to work with the self-image, with the mistaken identity.
Well, several reasons. Number one, our conventional methods of dealing with our emotional problems and our problems in our life, we typically turn to, therapy and counseling and books and things like that. And they don't work. I mean, they work in the context of coping, right? Regulating your nervous system to some degree or another. So that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
The way your mind works, like, it is a machine. Maltz positioned the idea that you've got this automatic creative mechanism. He said, you're not a machine, but you have a machine that you use, that you operate.
Mm-hmm.
And so your mind is this automatic built-in GPS, just like the GPS on your phone, right? And like all machines, it operates a certain way. And so you're not supposed to be dredging up the past. You don't have to deal with the past.
Yeah.
However, there's facts in the past that will explain a lot. And we don't like to even look at the facts of the past because we've been taught to hook up negative emotions to the story. And people throw around trauma. And now there's big T, little t, big trauma, little trauma. Like, all this so-called trauma is just purely an emotional reaction to what we experience. In fact, the trauma is more as an adult than when you were a kid.
Exactly.
Right? Like, I recall specifically what I went through in terms of the physical abuse, emotional abuse, the sexual abuse. I remember being kidnapped. I remember being in court after that had ended, right? And if somebody had just not got me into the idea there was something wrong with me back then, I probably wouldn't have struggled as much. And so your mind, it doesn't operate in the past. It's like it operates in the moment, right? And so if you deal with the past, but you don't have to deal with the past. That's a narrative, and that's a methodology that the psychology world has developed in trying to figure out what the problem is with us. And nobody really understands the root cause of the problem. Everything we've ever done in the mental health system is really just to deal with the problems. But if you get to the cause of the problem, then you can clear up today and you don't have to deal with the past.
Exactly.
But our system says that's what you got to do. I always tell people, go to counseling if you want, but don't go for very long, because the only place you're going to go is in the past.
I always love to ask you those questions, because you have loads of experience with this path, let's call it, right? You have used everything. Like you always laugh, you say, you name it, I have used it, right? All the techniques, books, all the big names, therapy, everything. You know this stuff, right? You have used those stuff a lot.
Yeah. I'm an expert.
I'm
an expert on what I was an expert on what doesn't work.
Exactly.
Now I'm an expert on both, what works and what doesn't work. And again, our system went a certain way. Like when Maltz brought out that book he was working on the 50s and 60s. The psychology world went a different route. Like the notion of self-image didn't really take hold in a big way. In one of the chapters, it's called How to the Power of Rational Thinking, and he says in the book, he said there's a fallacy that the psychology world thinks that one can't take control of their rational mind and change the unconscious. So the psychology world thinks it's all about the unconscious.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's not.
But that became the popular method. And that's the system that we know today. And so we still, turn to the system. I'll be out for dinner, I'll be having a coffee. Pretty much every day, if I happen to be in earshot, I'll hear people talking about their problems, and they're talking about, my counselor said this, my therapist said this. I was on a call with a very successful psychologist last week, and I had worked with their brother, and remarkable transformation in 30 days. And they wanted to know what was the secret about what I was doing, because they're very successful and they're very earnest in their work as a psychologist, and the methods they use would be considered probably more leading edge relative to the masses. But she couldn't figure it out. I said, well, I'll tell you if you want. I said, it might offend you because I'm going to say some things that go against your belief system. And the only reason you believe what you believe about your psychology is because that's what you were educated upon. And you'll fight me that you're right and I'm wrong, even though I can show you that you're wrong, but you'll still fight because you believe, because that's how you're educated, right? Like nobody's looking at the real problem. Everybody's looking at people's problems and how to deal with them. Nobody's really going, what is the real cause of my problems?
True. And you will agree with me that we are trying so hard, spending so much time and energy trying to cure the symptoms, but we never even have a thought or the moment, and we never think about asking ourselves completely different questions. Wait a second, something is not working here, because I'm in this process, let's call it process, for 10 years, 12 years, 20 years. I know people who are trying to still figure it out for 20 years, and they cannot do it, right? They cannot really ask themselves really basic questions. Wait a second, where is the cause of all of it? Where is it?
Right.
Because we can treat the symptoms for the rest of the life, and what's next? And it's funny because Do you know how hard it was for me to accept this idea that you can do this so fast, that you can actually change the way how you think about your past, the way how you can detach yourself from the past or from this emotional prison? Like you said, in 30 days, this is crazy. People spend decades trying to heal themselves or trying to figure out, and literally we can do it in 30 days, right?
I remember you asking me a couple of questions, some challenges you were facing.
Yeah.
And I said, well, do you want me to give you the answer? And I gave you the answer. You said, geez, that makes sense. I should go through this process.
Yes.
And yeah, you were in this group, and like at the beginning, I always tell everybody, I said, I've got the hardest job. Your job is easy. You just got to follow my instructions for 15, 20 minutes a day.
Yeah.
My job's hard because I got to convince you that this is simple and that it is easy, because you're going to want to make it hard. And I got another message this morning from a client going through it, and of course they write down easier said than done. and and that's just like, because it's been pretty hard, right? It was hard for me for so long,
Yeah.
and I couldn't accept how simple and easy it was. And it took a very important mentor in my life, where he said, Doug, you're making this so complicated. Like,
Yeah.
it's as easy as 2 + 2 = 4. And I'm going, no, it can't be.
It can be. Yeah.
I had just tried so many things and gathered so much information and continue to make so many more, pardon me, continue to make so many more mistakes in spite of everything I learned. I go, why am I still having a problem? Because I've done everything, and I was never questioning what I was doing and the way I was doing it, like what I was learning.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought, because I was failing still, there must be something wrong with me. And then I finally go, wait a minute, let's ask a different question. Maybe what I've been listening to is wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe what I believe is wrong. Maybe the people that influence me, maybe they're wrong. Maybe the mental health system is wrong. Maybe the self-help world is wrong.
Yeah.
And I started looking for the truth. And then you find the truth and you're set free.
I love it. I love it. And I know people will be watching this video and they'll be thinking, no, you cannot do this. Like, I've done this for years. How do you have to do it in 30 days?
I get it all. I had to develop a thick skin, as they say, because I get a lot of people that get angry with me. I'll put something out, online or whatever, and people get angry with me to suggest that, all their suffering and years of abuse and different things, and now all the problems that they have, how dare you suggest that I can turn this around quickly? And that's sad, because unfortunately, the other problems the system has created is this notion of a victim mentality has become popular. And it's a great way to excuse away your mistakes and your problems. But it will eventually eat away at you, literally. It'll erode your self-worth. It'll erode your integrity. It'll start to, you'll move into a state of dis-ease if you haven't already. Yeah. And when you move into a state of dis-ease, your body begins to disintegrate. And they've already attached early death rates to the people that have gone through these, what they call adverse childhood experiences. They have 3 major diseases associated to these adverse experiences when you were a kid. They've got all kinds of economic implications in terms of your career, early death. Like, they've got all these stats that from years of study of this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh.
So self-image is important. This is the most important thing we should do in our life, which is clear all the crap, change the set of the ideas, because this is just the ideas, and this is just a set of the beliefs that we have, and we are fighting so hard trying to protect them. this is actually crazy part. Everybody wants to change. Everybody think about changing their lives and their results, but nobody wants to be changed.
Right.
This is what I can see working with people, and probably you have the same experience. Yeah, we like the idea of letting go, but most of the people, they do not want to letting go, or maybe they just don't know how to do it properly. Maybe they have tried it in the past,
Yeah.
it didn't work.
They don't know how. And all the stuff that's out there explaining how to let go, that's even more confusing. Letting go is so easy. Now we don't have time, in this video to talk about that. But yeah, I mean, I think the fundamental problem is people have been operating a certain way for so long. The older you are, it seems the harder it would be to change. But it does, like you said, it does come down to this system of ideas, the set of beliefs that we have, that we're operating with, and we want our lives to improve, but our perception of what it really truly takes, either if we know what it takes, we think it's going to be, dredging up the past and dealing with our emotions and our feelings, or we try the other route, which is just more material success and gain, and maybe that'll work.
Yeah.
So whatever side of the fence you're on right now, if you're on the victim side and you're really stuck, or you're still pursuing material success, or you're doing both, like it's a losing game. And, the marketing world has us seduced by the promise that if we become successful or skinnier or have nicer hair or better, whatever, then we're going to be happy. And the only people that seem to be happy are the ones that are raking in all the money. So yeah, self-image is essential because your self-image guides your mind. It's like in this GPS, there's a in the application itself, right? It's a piece of software that basically communicates with a satellite through your phone through the chip or the SIM card, right? And it guides you. And just like driving your car, so the car is like the vehicle, you're the operator, and you got this internal GPS that is guiding you. So if your self-image directs your brain and nervous system, all you got to do is take a look at your results and what is your nervous system like. And if you don't like your results and your nervous system isn't healthy, you're operating with some faulty information.
Yeah.
Right? Of course you're going to get stuck. Of course you're going to crash. Of course you're going to have accidents and cause problems. So we got to get to the thing that's running our life.
And when we do that, every single area in our life will change.
Yeah.
This will not only affect our relationship with us, which is obviously the most important relationship that we have in our life, but also the quality of the relationships we have with other people, kids, partners, wife, husband, business, job, career. We're just better human beings, right?
Well, think about it. The fundamental problem we have in our world is that people are trying to be somebody they're not for whatever reason, right? To pursue success, to avoid conflict, to either attract the love of our life or not lose relationships in our life. We've been brought up to be somebody we're not. And of course, you're going to have problems. And of course, you're not going to feel really good about yourself because you're not being yourself. But when you get rid of this mistaken identity and you understand how your self-image actually guides you, it's not complex, simple stuff, right? Then you're much more confident to just be yourself. And surely, obviously, logically and practically, it's got to be easier in our world and easier to succeed if we can be ourselves. But we're convinced we got to be somebody else to succeed. And the only reason you're tricked into that is because your mistaken identity is who you think you are.
Exactly. And then it's the hard work to do. It's the hard job. It's difficult. And we're exhausted. And it takes so much time and energy, of course, because you're always pretending. You're playing the role. You're wearing this mask.
Yeah.
And there's a one, let's call it quote. I have heard those words many times in my past, and probably you have heard this quote as well. Fake it until you make it. This is not what we want to do here. You do not want to put more mask on your face.
No.
Please don't do it. And this is actually our first video of many that we're planning to record for all of you guys. But in those videos, we're going to go a little bit deeper in self-image word and how you can do this work properly so you do not have to fake it anymore, any longer.
That's a good idea.
Oh, I love it. Doug, thank you so much. Thank you. This is the first video of many, but I'm so excited because the self-image topic is super hot and we all have mistaken identity. So I'm excited because we will create such an incredible background so our audience, so they can watch it, they can learn from it, they can apply it, and they can detach themselves from the past, from the mistaken identity, so they can have a wonderful life. So thank you for doing this. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.